And I think this is a good segue to the next speaker, Jeffrey Sachs, who will talk about one important pillar of this partnership, which is the US-Indonesia Partnership for Climate Action, whether it's on the financing or the technology, and obviously with the role of the private sector. The climate ambition and the climate goals cannot be achieved without the role of both advanced countries as well as developing countries, and global and bilateral cooperation. I'm sure everybody knows who Jeffrey Sachs is, but he is the president of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, of which many of us have been there since the beginning, including THK. Over to you, Jeff.
Ibu Marie and friends, colleagues, excellencies, thank you for the honor to join in today's discussion. It's also a celebration of THK, and perhaps we could say that all good things come out of Bali and will come out of Bali. The philosophy of Trihita Karana has come out of Bali, the THK Forum has come out of Bali, and the G20 next year will be the Bali Summit, in which I think we can be confident that all of these issues will be solved. So if we work very, very hard, I don't think that the G20 summit this year is going to resolve these issues, but it will put them on the table squarely. But the G20 summit in Bali could be a historic breakthrough. We need a historic breakthrough. We need essentially a Bretton Woods 2. But maybe instead of calling it a Bretton Woods 2, we'll call it a Bali 1. And the reason is that at the end of the last great crisis of the world, World War II, there was a major conference on how to finance a new post-war world. And that created the World Bank, which Ibu Marie leads so ably with her colleagues. And it created the International Monetary Fund, which will issue $650 billion of SDRs next month. These have been critical institutions, but we need a new financial compact for the world in our time. We need finance for sustainable development, and we need to reach decarbonization everywhere in the world. I would say 100% everywhere by 2050. We know that that means an energy transformation to zero carbon electricity, electric vehicles, hydrogen economy. The components are known, but they're expensive. They require financing. And the rich countries right now borrow at 1% interest, but developing countries pay 5 or 10% interest or have no access to capital. The financial system doesn't work properly because it channels funds to those who have capital and not to those who need capital. This is a basic proposition. And so this is our goal, in my opinion, at Bali 1. The summit next year of the G20. I can't think of a better host of the summit than Indonesia to represent the interests of the developing world in partnership with all of the world. The partnership of Indonesia and the United States in this year, as it's being forged with Secretary Kerry, our finest statesman in the United States, and Minister Lahout, between President Jokowi and President Biden. This is a key pillar for global cooperation. Let's leverage this into a key pillar for solutions. The problem we've seen in this pandemic is that the world has become more unequal, not less unequal. The rich have gotten richer. The billionaires have increased their wealth in the pandemic by $5 trillion. That's just 2,500 individuals. Whereas much of the world, billions of people have become poorer. We see it in the unequal access to immunizations, to technology. And we see it in the unequal access to finance, which is where I want to put my emphasis in the remaining moments of my remarks. The United States has borrowed and spent $6 trillion from last March until now in fighting COVID. Good. This is leading to a vigorous recovery in the United States. But what about developing countries? They have been tightening their belts. While the rich countries have been financing their way through, the poor countries are seeing Fitch and others write down the creditworthiness, downgrade country after country, dozens, making it even more difficult to finance the recovery. So far, there are not satisfactory answers to this. Let me be clear. The G7, the rich countries, have failed so far. They promised back in 2009 $100 billion per year for climate action. Incredible. That was never a big number, but they didn't meet their goal. They still don't have a formula to meet it. All they could do at the G7 was to reiterate a stale promise that is too small by far now, because we need hundreds of billions of dollars per year of financing. So these problems are not solved, which is why I would like to advocate that the Bali summit really resolve these issues. That gives us a year of homework, lead time, and the most beautiful place in the world to settle these issues. Because Bali is inspiring. It brings the best out in people. And so if we come to Bali, we're going to be happy and we're going to agree and we're going to cooperate, especially with the wonderful hospitality of the government of Indonesia, which is unique in its capacity to charm us and to welcome us. And so I think that this is a real opportunity. Let me say that one of our hosts, Sherry Nir Salim, has been championing for years blended financing as a solution. And the idea of having a center of blended finance in Bali to help the whole world in this new era is incredibly timely. But let's keep our eye on what counts, which is that we cannot achieve these goals without the financing behind them. And Mr. Bezos, he has $201 billion in his bank account, personal, as of this morning, $201 billion. And the richest 10 people have 1.3 trillion, personal. So there's plenty of funding around. And the G7 countries haven't even found 100 billion among themselves. Dare I say shame? I will, because I have looked at these numbers for a dozen years. They're not hard to achieve. We need to capitalize the Asian Development Bank more. We need to capitalize the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank more. We need blended financing, green bonds, SDG bonds. We need to capitalize the World Bank more. We need to capitalize the other multilateral development banks more. So let me thank Indonesia for its great leadership. Let me thank the United States and Indonesia for the partnership, which symbolizes cooperation between developed and developing countries. Let's get the financing right. Thanks goodness Indonesia will host the G20 next year. I think it can be a historic achievement. Thank you so much. Wonderful to see friends. Back to you, Marie.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for that very impassioned call and promoting Bali. We're all for that, not just promoting Bali, but that all good things come out of Bali. And I especially like your point, of course, about potential capital increase for MDBs like the World Bank. So, and thank you for hitting the nail on the head by saying that what counts is the financing that will be needed for us to act at scale, and with ambition and with urgency, obviously.